So, Diane Abbott has had a run-in this week with a particularly nasty Tory MP called Lee Anderson. He's also known by his nickname 30p Lee, and that nickname refers to completely outrageous comments he made about the cost of food and how much it costs to feed a family in relation to benefits. But when you're thinking of this guy, Lee Anderson, just think of the worst characteristics, the most sort of repugnant elements of most Tory MPs. Imagine them distilled and concentrated and refined into a single individual, and you've pretty much got a picture of Lee Anderson, aka 30p Lee. But before we look at the details of the argument between Lee Anderson and Diane Abbott, it's worth taking a minute just to pause and reflect on the amazing career of Diane Abbott and the amazing achievements of Diane Abbott. Diane Abbott was the first black female MP elected to the House of Commons. Now that in itself is an achievement, but it's also surprising that it took to 1987 till that happened. She faced racial discrimination from the usual sources, from where you would expect it to come from the Murdoch Press, from the Daily Mail, from the Tories in general, but she also faced significant opposition from within the Labour Party itself, particularly from the right wing of the Labour Party, because she was and is a committee socialist. She is dedicated to fighting for the rights of minorities, fighting against discrimination. Diane Abbott has been a consistent campaigner for the rights of all minorities. But she was categorised and she was included in a tabloid creation of the time called the Loony Left. Of course, it was particularly bad for her because she was black and she was a female. So that was then, that particular line of attack was doubled up on when it came to Diane Abbott. This idea of the Loony Left was a complete tabloid creation, and as we saw later with Jeremy Corbyn, when it comes to attacks on the left from the Murdoch Press and from the Daily Mail, then the right wing of the Labour Party is quite happy to play into that because as I think we're all realising, the right wing of the Labour Party hate the left wing of the Labour Party more than they hate anybody else, and certainly more than they hate Tories. That achievement of Diane Abbott to be the first black MP, that in itself has guaranteed her place in the history books. Once overcoming the poisonous racism of her political opponents, both inside and outside the Labour Party, Diane very quickly made a mark as an excellent Commons performer. Her speech during the Counter-Terrorism Bill 2008 won the Spectator magazine's Parliamentary Speech of the Year award and further recognition at the 2008 Human Rights Award. As well as being the first black female MP, she was the first member of an ethnic minority to represent her party at Prime Minister's question time.
Violent messages she receives use the Prime Minister's own words. The Prime Minister dismissed these concerns as simply humbug. Since that exchange, my honourable friend has received 4 further death threats, some again quoting the Prime Minister's words. Death threats and abuse is something that women across this House experience. Will the Foreign Secretary take the opportunity to apologise on behalf of the Prime Minister for his initial dismissive response?
Can I thank the Right Honourable Lady, and my eagerness to rise to the dispatch box was only because it is fitting in Black History Month as the Right Honourable Lady becomes the first black MP to take to the dispatch box for PMQs. To say that she has blazed a trail, she's made it easier for others to follow in her footsteps, and that is something that I and every honourable member in this House can take pride in paying tribute to. She raises the increasing level of online and wider abuse that politicians get on all sides of this House, and I think we should come together to be clear that there must be zero tolerance for any abuse or any threats. Now, can I also say I found the level of abuse that the Right Honourable Lady has received online to be totally disgusting, totally unacceptable.
Goodness, more support there from Dominic Raab for Diane Abbott and the struggles that she's faced and the battles that she's faced against racism than I've ever seen from Keir Starmer or anybody on the right wing of the Labour Party. So, credit where credit is due. There's little doubt that Diane Abbott received and continues to receive more abuse than any other MP in the House of Commons. As Diane herself said, she is abused because she's a woman, she's abused because she's black. Those two things together are like a red flag to a bull as far as the bigots and racists in this country are concerned. The tabloid press has also made sure that Diane Abbott has always had a target on her back. Other politicians have got confused about numbers as part of an interview, but none of them have been berated and crucified for a bad interview the way Diane Abbott has been. I mean, it almost makes you think that black female politicians are held to a different standard from white male and white female politicians, because we never heard the end of it. And who could forget Mojito Gate? The song and dance was made about Diane Abbott sipping from a can on the London Underground. Yet again, the tabloids managed to blow this incident into a major scandal, a story that barely deserved a paragraph possibly in a newspaper. But it is interesting to note that when we're talking about alcohol consumption and breaking the law in a far more serious context, the Sun was much more hesitant to report on lockdown parties that were taking place while people were dying and they were partying at number 10 Downing Street. And then we discovered why the Sun was so quiet when it came to that particular story. Well, how could the journalists say anything, because actually, yes, their boss was actually at those parties, but my God, that never received one iota of the publicity that they gave to Diane Abbott having a sip of Mojito on the London Underground. But at least the racism that was coming from places like the Sun and the Daily Mail, well, it's transparent and you can see it. And it's kind of obvious and kind of expected. What wasn't expected was the more hidden, covert, surreptitious racism that was actually going on inside the Labour Party itself, inside Labour Party headquarters, where clearly there was a bunch of anti-black racists who were just giving complete rein to their feelings and how they felt about this black woman, and putting it down in writing and WhatsApp messages, and quite happily sharing these WhatsApp messages between themselves. Shameless, absolutely shameless racism. That type of racism from actually within our own party, that's particularly disgusting. That is particularly nasty, to think that that was going on and that Diane was having to face that. But I mean, this was the right-wing faction within the Labour Party. These were the people that were working with the right-wing Labour MPs. It was anything to bring down Jeremy Corbyn and anything to bring down the people around them. And it even degenerated into just sheer, simple, blatant, unapologetic racism. And those people who were named in the Labour Leaks report and then also again picked up directly in the Ford report, an investigation into the Labour Leaks, commissioned by Keir Starmer himself. What he witnessed, what he read in those WhatsApp messages that was shared between Labour Party staffers, people employed by the Labour Party, people who were getting paid based on the membership fees of Labour Party members. What he read in those WhatsApp messages he was clear and totally unambiguous about was racism, pure and simple. So what was the result of that? Did Keir Starmer offer an apology to Diane Abbott when all this appeared? Was he contrite about the whole thing? Did he swear to root out anti-black racism with the same fervour that he swore to root out anti-Semitism within the party? Well, the answer is no, he didn't. And why didn't they? Because, as the Ford report again pointed out, there's a hierarchy of racism within the Labour Party. There are some forms of racism, some forms of discrimination that apparently just don't matter. And one of those is anti-black racism. It's of no concern to Keir Starmer apparently. It doesn't matter, it doesn't register. You might have thought the Labour Party would have been a little bit, humbled by that whole experience of seeing one of their most prominent black Labour MPs actually abused by Labour Party employees. You might have thought, well, that some sort of olive branch might have been extended, but no. They hate her. There's no other way to put it. We sort of articulated in the Labour leaks what the general view of the right wing of the Labour Party is. They despise Diane Abbott. As far as they're concerned, the strong, powerful, articulate and bold black woman is something that they just cannot tolerate. It is just a total anathema to them because at heart they're racist. It's quite simple. It's as simple as that, whether they want to admit it or not. So now that right wing of the Labour Party, that Labour Party establishment, has their flunky Keir Starmer in charge, their puppet, as they pull his strings to make him do whatever it is they want to do. And I would say they have been determined to give Diane Abbott a kicking since 1987, actually, since the day and the moment that she became a Labour MP. So now they've got their opportunity to do it, despite the past history, despite the evidence of the discrimination that Diane Abbott has faced generally within society, from the right-wing press and from within the Labour Party itself. They are not finished with Diane Abbott. They are not finished with Diane Abbott. Not by a long chalk are they finished with Diane Abbott. So Diane Abbott is currently suspended from the Labour Party because of a letter that she wrote to the Observer, and was published by the Observer because clearly the Observer didn't actually see any issue with it. It was to do with a semantic argument on the difference between discrimination and prejudice. Quite an arcane semantic argument, but as Diane herself admitted, it was clumsily worded. It didn't quite express what she was meaning to express in that. So she immediately apologised, as she would, and said that the letter really didn't encapsulate what it was she was trying to say. Well, we can just imagine the right wing of the Labour Party on the phone to Keir Starmer. This was the opportunity they've been waiting for. They've been out to get her from day one, and she, despite the apology, she was suspended. And what's interesting to note about that is the double standards. When West Streeting called Jeremy Corbyn senile, all West Streeting had to do was apologise and all was forgiven. Okay, this double standard, it's almost as if black females are held to a different standard from white males. Alf Garnett was a character in an old BBC sitcom called Till Death Do Us Part. Alf Garnett was a figure of fun. It was clear Alf Garnett was a racist character. That was the character's name within that sitcom. And it was perfectly clear that Alf Garnett's racism stems from his own ignorance and his own stupidity.
It's a pity old Enoch ain't in charge, mate.
There we go.
Yeah, he'd have the solution, don't worry about it. Yeah.
That he would.
He put the coons down the pits, well, that's what. Only trouble is, they'd all be bashing into each other in the dark. Well, it's a fact, isn't it? There's a point, that's why they wear all that war paint, isn't it? So they can see each other in the dark, see? Well, I suppose, if he did put the coons down the pits, he could always whitewash their faces first.
He was a laughingstock, he was a figure of fun, and the audience were meant to laugh at him, including the working class audience, presumably, and as they did do. But it's almost as if in Tory, and I would say also Labour at the moment, it's almost as if they have decided that Alf Garnett character actually encapsulates and embodies actual real working class attitudes to race. I mean, what an insult. I mean, what an insult to think that that is how working class people view the issue of race and people of a different skin colour, because that's the only way to explain Lee Anderson. I mean, Lee Anderson is a pound short Alf Garnett. And the other thing I would add as well, Alf Garnett was a real person and alive today and saying the things that he was saying in that old sitcom. I'm telling you now, he would have a semi-permanent seat on BBC Question Time, and he would have his own show on GB News. I mean, there's no doubt about it. On to the actual dispute between Diane and 30p Lee. 30p Lee told the Daily Express, well, you could have predicted the publication, I suppose, he told the Daily Express that asylum seekers should back to France. But this type of BNP language, this go home type message that we've seen from the BNP and the National Front over the years, I mean, that is all that is. I mean, and using a four-letter word, this is the Alf Garnett theme, of course. This is speaking to working class people in a language that they understand. You know, because we're all effing and blinding all the time, or we can't say two words without effing and blinding because we're working class. Diane decided that she was going to challenge this, as you would expect, and they had a wee bit of Twitter coming and going. But she did then tweet after the dreadful tragedy. Okay, there's 41 people killed, yet another dreadful tragedy in terms of migrants trying to cross oceans to escape discrimination, to escape persecution. She did actually tweet, "These migrants have indeed f***ed off to the bottom of the sea." Now, it's perfectly clear, I think, to most people that the attitude encapsulated in 30p's Lee statement about off back to France, that level of contempt and dehumanisation of migrants, then combined very shortly afterwards with the tragedy of 41 people dying, that the anger at both of these things in that tweet is clear. She's angry at Lee Anderson and his ignorance and his stupidity, and she's angry at the deaths that had just happened, and these two things combined. Although, I mean, really, what most people actually seemed to be upset was the fact that she had used a 4-letter word as part of that tweet. My goodness, it almost makes you think that black women are held to a completely different standard to white men. Let's not forget, when Lee Anderson used that word, it was just laughed off as salty language. During an interview on Radio 4's Today programme this morning, Justice Secretary Alex Chalk was asked by presenter Nick Robinson if Anderson was speaking on behalf of the Tory party. He said, "Lee is expressing in salty terms, I think, something that people well understand." Oh well, there you go. You can F and blind all you want because that's just the sort of language that working class scum, that's the only language that we really understand, so that justified it. The Sky News item here tells us that there was a backlash on Twitter, or X, depending on what you want to call it. But predictably, it fails to inform us about how much support there was for Diane. So it might just be worth looking at some of that support, which a small sample that is very representative of many supportive X's. I mean, instead of tweets, do we call them X's now? Right, okay, well let's have a look at some of these X's. Mrs G. Diane Abbott rightly showed anger at xenophobic, fickle politician Lee Anderson using his shameful language to demonstrate the potential tragic outcome of such treatment of fellow human beings. Jude said, Lee Anderson tells migrants to f*** off back to France, faces little backlash. Diane Abbott quotes Lee Anderson, drawing attention to how dangerous his rhetoric is, gets abused. Heather Mendick. Diane Abbott has been wrongly accused of exploiting the deaths of 41 migrants in a shipwreck off Italy, and Sky News are trying to make her tweet into a bigger story than the violent policies that caused their deaths, and they've turned off replies so it's harder to challenge. Tom London. Anderson used the F word to whip up hatred against asylum seekers. Abbott used the F word to express her anguish at the avoidable loss of so many lives again, and to make the connection, speaking generally, between such deaths and such poisonous rhetoric. I support at Hackney Abbott. It was good to see this particular Sky reporter not getting the Abbott bashing that she was obviously hoping for. You can actually see the disappointment in her face.
Not a Labour MP anymore, a former Labour MP now, Diane Abbott. She used a rude word yesterday when she was referencing migrants.
Lee Anderson used that word, and then the Prime Minister, number 10, Cabinet Ministers, essentially gave the thumbs up to it, didn't criticise the use of that language. I think it's bad to use that language in public discourse, but actually I think it's also used by Lee Anderson and others to distract from the failings of the government, whether that's in relation directly to the asylum and immigration system or more widely about the cost of living crisis that we're all going through.
But then should Diane Abbott retweet it? In the sense of reusing that word.
Well, I think it's right that she deleted it. She's not a member of the Parliamentary Labour Party. She's not speaking on behalf of the Labour Party. I think it's right that it's been deleted. I think also, as I said, though, the wider context here of where this word first came into being used in the last few days through Lee Anderson does tell you something about the Conservative Party and their kind of quite desperate attempt to distract from the cost of living crisis and all the other problems the country is facing.
James Murray, Labour's Financial Secretary, Shadow Financial Secretary, didn't exactly defend Diane Abbott, but he did give quite a measured response there. Hope Diane Abbott doesn't let them get her down, and by them I mean practically everybody you can think of outside our own left-wing socialist circle, be it within the Labour Party itself, be it the Tories, be it the tabloid press, be it the anonymous online trolls. She has, for her whole political life, battled, and I'm quite sure she will continue to battle away, and she deserves our full support. So, solidarity, Diane.